Value is born in the space you leave behind. When you are ever present, your worth diminishes in others' eyes, like gold strewn so liberally that its shine becomes mundane. But the moment you withdraw, your absence ripples through their lives like a sudden chill in warm air. They notice the unfilled chair at the table, the gap in their routine conversations, the unanswered call that hangs like a question mark. In that void of your presence, desire awakens, curiosity stirs, and the mirror of their own dependency is revealed. You become an enigma rather than an open book, and people instinctively assign importance to what they cannot easily grasp. Imagine a courtier who is always by the prince's side, embellishing every moment with unwavering availability. Over time, the courtier's counsel becomes white noise, taken for granted, unremarkable. Contrast it with the counselor who vanishes for days, then returns at a moment of crisis. Suddenly, every word he speaks carries weight, every gesture is scrutinized, and his absence becomes as meaningful as his presence once was. That is the alchemy of scarcity. Your absence transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary. It turns fleeting moments into memories etched in the mind. Scarcity also shifts the balance of power. When you are too accessible, others assume they hold dominion over your time, your attention, even your loyalty. They demand meetings at inconvenient hours, expect immediate responses, and feel entitled to your emotional labor. But when you become selective, when you choose when and how to engage, you flip the ledger. Each request you decline, each delay you introduce, is recorded in the mental accounts of those who seek you. They tally these refusals as debts owed, and they must find new ways to earn your goodwill. In that system of microtransactions, you emerge as the arbiter of value, and they become supplicants striving to pay their dues. Absence also fuels anticipation. Think of the masked ball, where guests await the appearance of the masked stranger rumored to hold a secret. Every whispered rumor about the stranger's identity only deepens the intrigue. Now imagine that stranger walking into the room for an instant before disappearing again. The guests will swarm the corridors to chase a glimpse, straining their eyes through every shuttered window. You are that masked figure, unseen yet omnipresent in imagination. Your scarcity haunts the thoughts of others, compelling them to seek you out, to decipher your patterns, to anticipate your next move. Even in love and friendship, this principle holds sway. A partner who is never apart fades from novelty. A friend who is always available fails to register as exceptional. But the one who steps back, who cultivates a life with pursuits beyond the relationship, returns as a renewed force. Their independent pursuits lend luster to their company, and their absence speaks volumes about their self-worth. In that silence of unavailability, the heart's pendulum swings toward longing, and affection is reborn with every reunion. Silence is the invisible quill with which you write the terms of engagement, leaving others to fill the blank parchment with their own fears, hopes, and questions. Every word you speak grants agency to the listener, but every moment of silence seeds that agency back to you. When you choose not to respond immediately, to calls, to messages, to demands, you impose your own rhythm onto the relationship. In that void, others scramble to make sense of the lapse, to reconstruct a narrative that justifies your absence. They imagine crises or triumphs, reassess past interactions, and leaning closer for the next sign. By withholding your voice, you force them into the storyteller's role, and their tales inevitably circle back to you, elevating your importance in their mind. This command of silence begins with small acts, allowing voicemails to linger unplayed, watching a notification glow unanswered, meeting a question with a measured pause. Each pregnant moment stretches like a taut string, ridging with anticipation. People grow uneasy without your input, and will often overcompensate by crafting elaborate prototypes of your reasoning, sending you follow-up messages in search of clarity. In doing so, they reveal their priorities, their insecurities, their hidden agendas. And you learn more in those silent gaps than you ever could through conversation, because they speak from a place unguarded by your presence. Silence also masks your own intentions. When you speak, you give away clues, tone, phrasing, urgency, that others use to predict your moves. When you withdraw into stillness, you cloak your next steps behind a wall of uncertainty. Negotiations stall, power struggles derail, and the other party finds themselves grasping at shadows. Your absence becomes a shield, deflecting pressure and preserving your strategic advantage. They cannot read your mind if you remain mute, and so they must negotiate with the unknown, a far more vulnerable position. Moreover, silence can serve as a barometer for the strength of others' attachment to you. Those who care least will remain unaffected by your pause, Those who rely most will bend themselves into knots trying to break it. You can measure their desperation by the flurry of attempts to draw you out. Each message more urgent, each call more insistent. In that torrent of outreach, you discern who values your presence and who merely tolerates it. And you calibrate your own responses accordingly, rewarding the former with timely re-engagement and ignoring the latter until they disappear. To wield silence effectively, guard against the temptation to fill every gap. The compulsion to explain, to apologize, or to reassure is the danger that undermines your power. Each justification you offer resets the cycle, returning the narrative wheel to the other's hands. Instead, let your silence stand as its own statement, immutable, unassailable, complete. If pressed, respond with a single phrase that terminates debating, "I'll consider it." Then withdraw once more into quiet, letting the weight of those two words settle like dust on an old ledger. In public arenas, meetings, social gatherings, digital forums, the same principle applies. Speak only when your words can shift the balance. Otherwise, observe and allow the discourse to swirl around you. As others rush to state their positions, you listen, storing every piece of intel. When you finally speak, your rare intervention cuts through the noise like a blade, commanding respect because it is unexpected. Your silence beforehand amplifies the impact of your voice, ensuring that no word of yours is wasted. By mastering silence, you become the architect of the narrative itself, unseen, omnipresent, directing each scene from the wings. Others become both performers and audience, writing scripts around your absence, waiting for your next cue. And when you finally reappear, your re-entry carries the weight of a sovereign returning to court, claiming deference not through demand, but through the simple fact that you once again choose to grace them with your voice. Every time you decline a request, you forge a marker in the ledger of respect, reminding others that your consent is not a given, but a privilege to be earned. A simple refusal, uttered without regret or explanation, reverberates with authority. It tells the listener that you govern your own time and attention, that their wants do not automatically override your will. Each no you speak cracks the illusion that you exist to serve them. It resets the balance of power, transforming supplication into negotiation. When you say "not now" or "I'm unable," you cast them into uncertainty. They must evaluate their demands, calculate their approach, and ultimately strive to prove that their need is worthy of your scarce resource. In that recalculation, your value soars. Withholding your agreement also sharpens the edge of your eventual assent. A deferred yes glows brighter because it is rare. When you permit an exception, when you grant that meeting, that favor, that moment of attention, you do so from a position of sovereign choice, not necessity. Your agreement becomes a token of esteem, a sign that this particular request has passed the test you set. They remember not the refusal, but the triumph, the one time they moved you. That triumph, however small, binds them to you. They carry its memory as proof that your goodwill can be won, yet never presumed. Refusal must be practiced with disciplined consistency. If you deny a trivial request today, but comply with a similar demand tomorrow, you erode the foundation of your authority. Every exception weakens the rule, and soon the rule becomes meaningless. It is far better to deny every request rather than to inconsistently grant some, for unpredictability born of inconsistency breeds confusion, not respect. A steadfast boundary, maintained without wavering, stands firm like a rampart. It communicates a single message: your attention is non-negotiable. In social settings, your withholding should be subtle yet unmistakable. You may smile and nod when asked for a favor, then follow with a calm "I'll let you know." The absence of a firm commitment is itself a refusal to be readily enlisted. They will ask again, they may even press you, but your silence in response is more potent than any argument. The space you leave between promise and action stretches their anticipation and intensifies their need. They learn that your assent is conditional, not automatic, and therefore worth pursuing with greater tact. Moreover, withholding extends beyond mere words. It can manifest in the slow reply to messages, the postponed acceptance of invitations, the deliberate scheduling of meetings at your convenience rather than theirs. Each delay is a marker of your autonomy, a reminder that your schedule is governed by your priorities. They notice the gaps, the unread notification, the unreturned call, and feel compelled to fill them, to draw you back into engagement. In chasing the void you leave behind, they reveal the strength of their dependence. Through withholding, you also test the sincerity of others' intentions. Those whose interest is genuine will adapt, offering value in return for your attention. fresh propositions, deeper respect, alternate forms of connection. Those whose need is hollow will drift away, unwilling to invest in the pursuit. In this way, refusal becomes a filter, sifting earnest allies from opportunists. Your circle refines itself, populated only by those willing to respect your terms. By mastering the art of withholding, you elevate your worth not through grand displays, but through disciplined restraint. You demonstrate that your presence is not an entitlement, but a commodity of high value, to be traded on your own terms. In that economy of attention, every refusal and every eventual concession carves deeper into the consciousness of those around you, ensuring that your power is both recognized and revered. Unpredictability is the silent architect of fascination, the unseen force that keeps others perpetually attentive, never certain of what you will offer next. When your presence and responses become patterns, they slip into habit. Habit dulls awareness and invites complacency. To shatter that dullness, vary your availability without warning. One evening you appear in conversation with warmth and detail. The next you vanish into silence, only to re-emerge with a single, unexpected insight. Let your schedule become an enigma. Reply at dawn to some messages, ignore others until dusk, accept invitations at odd hours and decline at peak demand. In these oscillations, you assert that your time is not a public commodity, but a private treasure, to be dispersed as you see fit. The magic of unpredictability lies not in random chaos, but in deliberate variation. Each departure and return must feel neither punitive nor accidental, but purposeful, as though you alone decide the rhythm of engagement. When you slip away, you do not announce your absence, you simply stop. When you return, you do not apologize or explain, you simply resume. In that gap between disappearance and reappearance, the minds of others become consumed with speculation. They wonder whether you have moved on, faced crisis, or simply found a better pursuit. Their curiosity becomes a tether, keeping them mentally bound to your next move. Unpredictability also masks your true agenda. Should others believe you predictable, they can anticipate your strategies and counter them. But when your actions defy expectation, you retain strategic advantage. A colleague who schedules meetings based on your habits will find no habit to exploit. A friend who calls expecting your routine reply will instead encounter silence or an often update. In each case, they adapt, briefly, only to be surprised again. Their energy shifts from controlling you to chasing you, and in that chase you dictate the terms. Moreover, unpredictability ignites an emotional cocktail in those around you. Intrigue mixed with a hint of anxiety. They track your patterns but never quite solve them, driving them to invest more attention. They interpret your absence as significance and your presence as reward. This emotional investment deepens their perception of your value. They do not merely seek your attention. They crave the elusive promise of it. Each time you resurface, their reaction is heightened because of the tension you have built through absence. To maintain this dynamic, resist the urge to justify. If pressed for an explanation, offer a brief, neutral phrase, busy with other priorities, and withdraw. The vagueness fuels further intrigue. When you occasionally share the fruits of your absence, an idea born of solitude, a resource gain, an opportunity discovered, you demonstrate that your unpredictability yields benefits not just for you, but for those you engage. This balance rewards patience while reinforcing your autonomy. In personal relationships, unpredictability can recalibrate intimacy. A partner used to constant availability will find your measured appearances refreshing. The moments you share become more vivid, more cherished, more alive. They learn that closeness with you is not a default state but an achievement, and they approach you with renewed eagerness and respect. In professional circles, unpredictable contributions, unexpected insights in a meeting, a late-night solution to a problem, elevate your reputation as a thinker who cannot be contained by routine. Ultimately, when you cultivate strategic unpredictability, you transform from a fixture into a phenomenon. Never routine, always compelling. They simply withdraw. The world orients itself around the question of where you stand next, and in that perpetual question lies your enduring influence. True power emerges not from the approval you receive, but from the approval you no longer require. When your sense of worth is anchored in your own ambitions, passions, and principles, the attention of others becomes a byproduct rather than a necessity. Cultivating self-sufficiency means building a reservoir of competence, creativity, and purpose so deep that the ebb of external praise cannot drain it. You immerse yourself in projects that challenge your skills, in studies that sharpen your mind, and in rituals that reinforce your discipline. Each achievement is a brick in the fortress of your independence. And every hour spent away from demands of others is an investment in your unassailable core. Over time, this internal wealth eclipses the fleeting currency of social validation. To wield independence as a weapon, you must first disentangle your identity from the whims of the crowd. Notice how readily the untrained mind bends to popular opinion. Shifting ambitions, modulating tone, adjusting priorities to fit the expectations of peers. You resist this pull by setting uncompromising personal goals, mastering a skill, completing a creative work, forging a physical or intellectual challenge. In pursuing these aims, you establish rhythms in your day that are inviolable. Breakfast at dawn, study until noon, craft until dusk. Across these hours, you are beyond reproach because your purpose is self-defined. When someone demands your presence outside these hours, your refusal is neither rude nor apologetic. It is the simple upholding of your covenant with yourself. Independence also requires financial autonomy. Money is more than a means of exchange, it is a measure of freedom. A man who must grovel for funds grovels for permission. A woman who begs for favors begs for subservience. You shape your economic life to minimize obligations, diversifying income streams, living beneath your means, investing in assets that yield passive returns. With each surplus saved, you reduce the leverage others hold over you. Should someone threaten your stability, socially or romantically, the threat rings hollow because your foundation does not rest on their goodwill. Emotional independence unfolds in parallel. You train yourself to observe your feelings without becoming entangled. Instead of surrendering to every impulse for connection or fear of loneliness, you develop routines and outlets. Journaling, physical training, solitary study that satisfy your inner needs without recourse to another's intervention. When someone attempts to bait you with guilt or dramatics, you answer with composed neutrality. You recognize that their turbulence reveals their own dependency, while your calm underscores your self-mastery. In this emotional equilibrium, you are less likely to chase approval or defend your value, because your internal compass points only to your own north. Each act of self-sufficiency sends a powerful message: you are not at the mercy of external forces. Your calendar, your wallet, your emotions belong to you alone. Others learn that if they wish to engage with you, they must approach on your terms. They must demonstrate respect for your goals by scheduling meetings in advance, by offering reciprocal value, by honoring the boundaries you set. In so doing, they elevate their own standing, for they become allies in your pursuit rather than parasites on your availability. As your independence solidifies, you become less distracted by the politics of social approval and more focused on the politics of results. You measure your progress by milestones achieved, not by the applause you receive. And in that shift, you transform the landscape of interaction. The crowd no longer seeks to sway you, but rather positions itself to align with your action and vision. In the silent balance between need and supply, you stand as the supplier of your own validation, and in so doing you wield independence not merely as armor, but as the sharpest weapon in your arsenal that others must respect or risk their own insignificance. When you withdraw your availability, you do more than silence your presence. You rewrite the rules of engagement. Scarcity transforms your time and attention into treasures. Silence becomes the stage upon which others perform. Refusal reclaims your authority. Unpredictability sharpens their focus. And absolute self-sufficiency severs the chains of expectation. In mastering these tactics, you shift from servant to sovereign, from resource to prize, from player to arbiter. The world adjusts to your absence and yearns for your return, not out of necessity, but out of choice. And in that space between disappearance and reappearance, you command more power than any declaration ever could.